Is Daf Lamed. We're going to begin in Ika Damri. The line starts with Veloy. Yeah, you got it? Ika Damri. Yeah, Veloy. That's the story. That's what the... Okay, so now we started this yesterday, but we'll go back a little bit. Ika Damri, other people say, Amar Rava says, Kapchinu Rab Safra, the Klasa Rabbanon Simuche. And Rab Safra struck 3 ordained Chachamim who have smicha b'teusa mistakenly. Omar Rashi. So Rashi says, "Mai teusa." What was the mistake? So he says, "Mai ka'omer le Abba bar minyomi v'layat." Did the husband say to the shliach that only you should give it to Abba bar minyomi and not you? So l'cheira, he's saying that Reb Safra's psak is correct. Okay, now the Gemara brings a similar story. Who gave the shadle Gittin at the besu? There was a ma'isa that a certain man sent a get to his wife, and he used the shliach to send the get to the wife. Omar lei the shliach loy teisvi nahali atlas yemen. So he said to the shliach, do not give the get to her until 30 days have passed. So what happened? Itnis begoy atlas yemen. Circumstances occurred within the 30 days. And that was beyond the shliach's control. In other words, he saw that he would not be able to give the get after 30 days, as per the husband's instruction. So what happened? Also, the Kamei de Rava, this shliach now came in front of Rava and asked him, "What do I do?" So Rava says, "Chala taimemai." What's the reason why in our Mishnah it says chala? Because mishum da'anis, because a chayla is ainis. So he says, Hanami Anasu, in this case also is beyond your circumstances. So he said like this. So Amar Lei, so Rava said to the shliach, Meser miloch kamedidon, transfer your words, in other words, your shlichus before us, and we will serve as a bezdin. And after 30 days, we will appoint, in other words like this. So Rava said, you transfer your shlichus before us in bezdin, and after 30 days, we're going to appoint a shliach, and that shliach will bring the get to her. So the Chacham told Rabba, but l'cheira, this shliach was not granted the ability to effect the divorce. Why? Because within the 30 days, he doesn't have the authority now to divorce her. So l'cheira, how could he go and make a shliach or in front of Beis Din to give it to Beis Din? The Beis Din should make a shliach. So Amr yeah, because at the end of the day, when he gave the power to the shlichus, to the Beis Din, he himself didn't have the power to go ahead and divorce. His power only affected, his powers only affect in 30 days. So Amr so he said to them, since after 30 days he's able to divorce her, so he's considered a shliach who's granted the ability to effect the divorce. So now the Chachamim asked the Shaila Rava v'leichosh shema pias, but l'chayda the shliach where shliach l'chayda did not deliver the get immediately, so we should be concerned that perhaps the husband was Mephias' his wife. They made up, they had relations, and if they have relations, then it becomes a get yoshan, and you can't use such a get. Milay Tanan, didn't we learn in the Mishnah that the Mishnah over there says if before traveling a husband gives a get to his wife, and he says that it takes effect me'achshav from now, imlay basi mikan v'achnemas chedesh. If I don't arrive from now till 12 months have passed, and what happened? And he died within the 12 months. So the din is harei a get. Why? Because he said me'achshav. Now, and we asked the question on this mission over there, let us be concerned that perhaps the husband was Mephias, his wife, and decided not to divorce her and cancel the get. So why are you saying that if a guy says, and he died within the 12 months, it's a good get, because he said me'achshav, maybe they're Mephias. So Amar Rabba Arhuna, and Rabba Arhuna answered, Hachi Amar Abba Mari Mishmeid Rav. This is what Mari said in the name of Rav Ba'emer. We're talking about where the husband says My wife is credible, she's believed to say that I did not arrive. Since the husband basically he took away his right to contest the validity of the divorce by granting now absolute credibility to his wife, there's no chash that he may have canceled the get, as even if he were to claim that he had done so, his claim would not be accepted. Now, where the wife was never granted such credibility, there is concern that perhaps he canceled the get. Okay, so now the Gemara says this: Rava was embarrassed that he ruled incorrectly. Ultimately, the matter was revealed that this woman was the husband's arusa, and they had not married. So Rava said, if they said that there is a concern with regard to a married woman, that perhaps she was mefayis, we're going to say this by when they are just engaged. It's not shaykh to say that there was, because there's no relationships here. So Rava says, Havade komi boilam. We certainly have a shiloh. Why? Daf, Lamid, Amid, Aleph. Because he says like this. Start again, I'm sorry. Say like this. Rava says, Amar Rava, no. Havade komi boilam. We for sure have a suffix in the case of Ki mishavu bezdin shliach. And the bezdin now appoints a second shliach. Bifanav. So now the question is, when the bezdin now appoints a second shliach, bifanav or shalei bifanav, must they do so in the presence of the first shliach, or may be done in the or not in his presence? Hadar pashta, he then resolved the question, and he said that the second shliach could be appointed bein bifanav, bein shalei bifanav, whether in the presence of the first one or in the second one, or not in his presence. Shlachum mitam, they sent from Eretz Yisrael this psak that bein bifanav, bein shalei bifanav, and the shliach may appoint another shliach either in the presence of the first shliach or in the second shliach. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Hahu da Amar, there was a certain man, and this is what you were saying, Rabbi, yesterday. You were alluding to the story. Hahu da Amar, there was a certain man who said to the shliach, who he gave a get to, he said, if I did not arrive from now until 30 days, lahav a gita, so then the get that I'm giving should be a good get. A guy gave the shliach, the story might show you, a guy gave a get to a shliach. I told him if I don't come back in the 30 days, then deliver this get to my wife. So what happened? Also, upaske mibore. So what happened was he came the 30th day, and he was prevented from crossing the river. That there was a ferry that was located on the other side of the river, so he did not cross the river within the ferry was blocking him or didn't come on time. So Amalahu, so this husband said, Chazud asoi, look, I arrived here. So Amar Shmuel said that lo yishmei masya, this is not considered to be an arrival. In other words, even though he intended to come to come, but we say ein einis. This is the Gemara Ksubas. Ein einis begitin. There's no such a thing as einis and gittin, and therefore the get is chal. Another Gemara relates that Ahuda Amar Lahu, there was a ma'isa involving a certain man who said to a shliach, Eloi mefaisi la atlasu yemin. He gave a get to the shliach, and he said that if I'm not going to be able to appease my wife within 30 days, lahav a giti, let it be a get. Also paisi. Then he went to appease her, and v'lo paisa. She didn't take it. So Rabbi S says now, so l'cheira, it's a good get. Rabbi S says, mi yahavle tarkiva didonei v'lo paisa. Did he give her a large vessel full of dinners, but she was not appeased? In other words, even though he didn't appease her yet, it was because there was a lack of his financial means. So since he did not properly fulfill his condition, his tonight to appease her, the get is still valid. What did he say? He said, if I'm not going to be able to appease her within 30 days. Now, appeasing has a price. So this guy, Taka doesn't have the financial needs. But if let's say he would have had millions of dollars, maybe he would have, right? What do they say? Money buys happiness, and anybody who says not doesn't know where to shop.
They'd have called the diamond exchange, they had been in business with her.
Right? Those who say a different girsa. Rabbi S says, Midi tarkiva didonri boy lemesav lo. Did he need to give her a vessel full of dinners in order to appease her? Ha paisa. he wanted to appease her, but he did not appease her. So therefore the Tanai was fulfilled, and the get is, therefore the Tanai, he did fulfill his condition, and basically he says that the get is, it's a good get?
Yeah.
Sorry, he get.
You couldn't appease him.
Right, yeah, it's not his fault. It's not his fault that she wasn't appeased, yeah. Okay, so now the Gemara explains the difference between the first and the second girsa of Rabbi Yosef. Ha, kemad amar yesh einis begitin. Now, the second girsa in which we say that by the get, no, we say the get does not take effect, is ha kemad amar yesh einis begitin. There is einis begitin, and ha kemad amar ein einis begitin. In other words, like this. The second girsa is going to tell us which the get is not effective is according to the one who says that yesh einis begitin. There is circumstances beyond the control with regards to get. Therefore, the get is not good. Why? Because the husband did all he could to appease her. And the first gersa in which the get is a good get, we don't say einis begitin. Okay, now we have a new Mishnah. Just want to welcome my Zun, Menachem, came to learn today. Holding now a brand new Mishnah, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. We're going to continue the idea of this concept of Cheskes Chayim. We said before that to presume that the person is still alive and that we don't assume that the person died. Whenever we have a chazaka that he's chai, he's alive, we keep it. So now the Mishnah says like this: Hamal v'mayis es hakohen v'salevi v'sa'ani. Person who lends money to either to a kohen or a levi or a poor person. Now, he says liyis mafrish alein mechelkan. Now he lends them the money with an understanding that he will separate their portion of trumas and maisers from his chelek on the basis of the money. Like Rashi explains, he lends, let's say, $100 to either the kohen, the levi, or the ani. Now he tells the kohen and the levi and the ani, "How are you going to pay me back? I'm going to owe trumas and maisers. Eventually, I have payers, and I'm going to owe trumas and maisers." So, and it's a good tonight. He could do that. Now Rashi says, "What do you mean? This guy is a zar. He can't eat trumas and maisers." So the word is, he's going to go and take the trumas and maisers. He's going to sell it, and with that money, he is going to be able to pay himself back. That's totally fine. So the shaila is like this: he lent the money to the kohen, the levi, or the ani, and now he tells him, "How are you going to pay me back? You're going to pay me back that in 6 months that I'm going to have to give trumas and maisers. I'm going to say that this trumas and maisers is going to you, but since you owe me the money, I'm going to deduct it." Now, maybe the kohen, the levi, the Yisrael that you have to give maisers to, or you think you're giving maisers to, is not alive anymore. So he says, we presume he could separate the trumas and maisers on chazaka that the money that the guy is still alive. We don't suspect that either the kohen or the levi died, or ha'esharani, or the poor person became rich and is no longer eligible to meiser ani. Now, what's the benefit over here? The kohen or the levi benefits from this arrangement as he receives the gift up front in the form of a loan, and the yid benefits, the regular Yisrael benefits from it, that he does not need to go and look for a kohen or a levi each time to give the produce. He has a set levi and a Yisrael. Okay, so that's the first din of the Mishnah. Next din, then the Mishnah says that, however, Mesu, if in fact they did die, the kohen, levi, or the ani did die, so he has to get rishos from the yarshim in order to continue this arrangement, because sometimes the yarshim, or many times the yarshim, are not mechuyev to go and pay back the debt to their father. So he has to ask rishos. Now, im hilvu b'fnei bezdin, if he lent the money to the person who died, and he made a tanai in the presence of the bezdin, that the choyev is going to be repaid in this manner, then ein tzar litol rishus ben yarshin, he does not need to obtain permission from the yarshim, and the Gemara will explain. Okay, so basically we have two dinim over here. We said din number one is that if a person is malva mois to the kohen, the levi, the ani, and he wants to make the arrangement that in order to pay himself back, he's going to be mafresh when he has trumas amaisus michelkon. So the din is he could be mafresh, and we assume that the kohen, levi, and the ani is still alive. However, if he did die, then he needs to get rishus from the Yarshim to continue this arrangement. But if he made this Tanai in Beis Din, then he doesn't. Okay. Now,
What's the second thing? You said there's two things.
two dinim, yeah. So it's the first din is malva mois to the kohen, the levi, so he can make the thing. And then the second part of the din is if they die, so then he has to ask permission from the Yarshim. But if he did it in front of Beis Din, then he doesn't. Okay. So now the Gemara assumes that the kohen, the levi, and the ani basically acquire the truma and the maisus from the from this malve from his produce. Now they agree at the time of the halva that the trumas and maisus will then be acquired by the malve as payment for their debt. So, frag the Gemara, can the kohen, the levi, and the poor person transfer possession of their trumas or maisus back to this malva, even though the produce did not come into their possession? In other words, what's happening over here? They owe this malva money, but the malva owes them trumas and maisus. So what are we saying? We're saying that the guy says the trumas and maisus that I'm going to have to pay you, I'm keeping in my rishus. Frag the Gemara. How exactly? When did the kohen and the levi or the ani get the produce in order for it to be in the rishus that they can get it back? Okay, so now Amar Rav says b'makori kuhuna levia. Now this was said in regards to people who actually he has an arrangement with this kohen and the levi. So since we're talking about people who like they have associates of the kohen and the leviim, people have arrangements with this specific kohen and levi to give him trumas and maisus. So the specific kohen and levi have a chazaka status of ownership of the trumas and maisus and are considered that they already acquired it. That's Rav's answer. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says b'mezaka lohem ayidei achirim, that this din was said in regards to somebody who has a kohen or levi acquire the gifts through others. In other words, that somebody is acquiring the gift for the kohen. So the lender is then able to now reclaim the gifts as repayment of the loan. He goes, he gives it to somebody else. Now he's kohen it, and then he gets it back. Yeah, through somebody else. Now, Ula Amar, Ula says that Hamani. Ula says, who is this opinion in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yasi. This is Rabbi Yasi. The Omar, he says, the Chachamim, they made one who does not acquire like the one who acquires. So the Chachamim have the power that even though the person actually didn't kaina, but it's like he was kaina. Okay, so we have three answers. Rav said either we're talking about that the guy knows the kohen levim and it's like a chazaka that he's giving it to these people. Shmuel says is that somebody else is mezakeh, and Ula says that who is this din like Rabbi Yasi who says that the Chachamim say also sheini zeicha kazeicha. Yeah, but this is a different din. Here it's like the Chacham, even though he didn't make a kinyan, but the Chacham it's like he acquired it. Yeah, okay. So now the Gemara says like this. Kula karav le'amru. All the Chachamim, Shmuel and Ula, do not state their opinion like Kula karav le'amru. They do not, what do you say? We have three dinim here, right? We have three opinions. We have Rav, Shmuel, and Ula. So he says like this. Kula karav, nobody wants to learn like Rav. Why? Because b'makir lektani. Because it does not say, the Mishnah does not say that we're talking about people that actually knew the kohen or that had this arrangement with the kohen and Levi. Kishmuel like Amri, not all of them wanted to learn like Shmuel because b'mezaka like Tani. We're not speaking about mezaka. Kulanami like Amri, they didn't want to learn like Ula because we do not want to establish the mission in accordance with the Das Yachid. which in this case would be Rabbi S. We say rather the chazaka is that we say that Mistama, the Mishnah goes according to Rav opinions. Okay. So now we bring a brisa in regards to this halacha of the Mishnah. We learned in a brisa, if somebody lends money to either a kohen, a levi, or a ani, and he has the understanding that he's going to separate their portion of truma and maasros from this produce on the basis of that money. So what's the din? Number one, first of all, he could separate the trumas and maasros from this produce, chazaka, on the basis of that money, with the chazaka that they're still alive. Number two, another din is upoisik imoim kishar zeil. He can make a contract with them according to the low market rate, which means he could set up a price for the gifts that he will separate in the future based on either the value at the time of the loan or the value when they will be separated, whichever is lower. Because this guy has an issue. He gives the guy a loan for $100. Now he says, okay, I have 1,000 apples, so I have to give you, let's say, $100 worth of apples, right? But how do you don't just, you have to give value over here. So what's the value of this $100? So it's a problem, because if, let's say, the market goes up on apples, so then he'll have to give less apples to pay back his chayv. If the market goes down, so then the person who is malva, it's in your ribis. Then the Gemara is going to say not, but then the guy who gives the loan, he gains more apples because apples now are lower price.
You tagged everything to apples, so it goes up or down. It's apples. Like dollars, whatever. So
that's what he's saying. Means he can go ahead and make the contract. He has a choice. He says, we're going to say either we're going to go based the value of the time that I lent you, or the time of the loan, or the value when they will be separated. In other words, he looks whichever is lower. Now, it's not.
Well, why would you think? Why can't you do it at the time when he's mechuyev to give the trumas?
Because the time that because when he's getting his loan back, through. You can't give $100 to somebody and get back 102. Doesn't work that way. It's not davar shalei b'leilam. It's just he's going to be paying back with fruit, and they made this up now. The shaila is what price? Okay, the aim by mishum ribis, and as well, there's no din of there's no problem of ribis. If the kohen, if he makes this arrangement with the kohen, the levi, and the ani, there's no isser ribis over here. Even though if the payers go up, then somebody will be gaining from this, and the Gemara will explain why. And the ein shvis me shamte, and also the shvis here does not cancel this loan. Even after shvis, the malva can continue to collect such a debt. That's the third din. Fourth din is ve'im ba lachser. If the malva wants to, he wants to renege this arrangement, ein chazer, he's not allowed to go back. In other words, if the malva now wants to renege from the halva, from the leva, and say, I don't want to collect trumas and maasros. In other words, he says, I want the money back. I don't like this arrangement. Halacha is ein chazer. He's not allowed to retract. And another din is nisyashu habaylim. If the owner now, let's say he was miyayish from retrieving the loan, because he thought that he thought that he would not need to separate any trumas or maasros, and therefore thought that he will not collect payment for the loan. Now, even though later it became clear that he was mistaken, halacha is ein ma'afish aleim. He cannot separate the trumas and maasros from the produce on the basis of that money. Why? Because you're not allowed to separate trumas and maasros on a basis of one's loan that one had thought that he lost. In other words, once he was miyayish from retrieving the loan, basically the sum of the loan is acquired permanently by the borrowers, and the lender may not use trumas and maasros to serve as a repayment. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to discuss this brisa. So we had 5 dinim over here. So the first din we said is paisik imoyim b'shar zel. First din we said is that he may make a contract with them according to the low price market rate. So for the Gemara Pshita, it's obviously he could do that. And for the Gemara Kamash Malan, this teaches us that Alpha Bishalei Pasak, even though he did not actually explicitly make this contract that he would use the lower market rate, he's considered like one who did contract. I may do so anyway. Okay. And the second thing we said is that there's no ribis over here. My timer. What's the reason why there's no ribis? So the Gemara answers and says, why? Because since when the Kohen or Levi has no truma or maisus that, let's say, he receives from the malva, in other words, let's say when the grain of the field, it's not like you said, maybe it's above davar shlei b'leilam, maybe it's things that lav dafke, what if it's a drought that year? So even the chilesle lo yoyvle, since the deal was, I'm gonna get paid back through trumas and maisers. Now, if you're gonna have a year that it did not sprout due to the drought, lo yoyvle, he does not give anything. So the kis nami, so too. So basically, if he doesn't have to give anything, so it's not a true loan. Therefore, when the Kohen of the Levi has trumas or maisers, ein by mishum dibus, there's no din over dibus. The third thing we said, the Brisa says, ve'ein shvis mishamatei, and shvis does not cancel out the loan. Mark explains why not. The leikarin be loy igos, because concerning this loan, we cannot read because what does the Torah say? He shall not igos. He shall not exact payment. Now, since in any event one cannot claim repayment of this type of loan because it's not a typical loan, so basically the Torah does not address such a din. Another din the Brisa says, and if the Malva now wants to renege on this agreement, he's not allowed. They taught this din with regards to a balabais, a homeowner, in other words, an owner of produce, who now wants to renege on his agreement with a kohen. So in that situation, the balabais cannot demand repayment of the loan with money. Now, aval kohen be balabais, however, with regard to a kohen who wants to renege on his agreement with the homeowner, so now, im balachser, if he wants to renege, chayzer, so the kohen could renege. The time we learned in a Mishnah Bava Metzia, we learned that if the purchaser gave the seller money, but he didn't make a mashicha, so then the din is yachal achser b'y. So since the kohen received money and the balabas did not actually acquire the produce, so now the kohen can renege on his agreement. Then the Brisa says, if the owners were miyayish despaired of retrieving the loan, so then the din is a mafresh aleim. He may not separate trumas and maisis from the produce. The fish ein mafrishin ala avot. For the Gemara pshita is obvious, and for the Gemara leitzricha, we need a case. It's necessarily only in a case where the akun, where the seeds produced stalks and became dried out. Now, mal the tema akanta milsi, you would say.
In order for him to collect from the truma, the kohen himself has to have the possibility of.
The arrangement was that he's going to get paid back through the trumas and maasros. But if the kohen says, "I don't want,"
have the capability of paying him in order for him to collect.
Oh, you're saying if he has but he has a chayv over there. He has a chayv, so he says, "I don't want to be paid back this way." He has every right to say that. Meaning, I don't want to repay you back in this way. He has every right to do that.
The kohen has to say, "I don't want to pay you back."
Yeah.
He can't take the trumas and maises anymore.
He can take the truma. He has to give the trumas and maises to somebody else now. Yeah, he can't make the Yeah. Okay, so Ma'adatema Akantan will say, you would say that the growth of the stocks is a significant manner. In other words, there's a chance that the produce will still grow, so he doesn't fully be miyayish. Kamash Malan, we don't say that. Okay, Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yankov says, Hamava Moises Hakenim Salevi Bebezdin. We learned the Brisa says that when somebody lends money to a kohen or a Levi in Bezdin, and Vemesu, and they died before repaying the loan. So the din is he separates trumas and maises on the basis of that money with a chazaka that there is somebody from that shevet who inherited from them, and he does not need to confirm that the deceased kohen or Levi has yarshim, and then that's how he continues his arrangement based on the transfer of the chayiv to the yarshim. So that's again. Amav Moses Akein Usalevi Bebezdin Memesu. Mafresh Shalem Becheskas Eseshevet Vesani Bebezdin. And Vesani Bebezdin. Now, Vameis. Now, if he lent money to a poor person in Bezdin, and now the poor person died, Mafresh Shalem Becheskas Ani Yisrael. So he could continue to separate on the chazaka that the money that the poor that he would agree to continue this agreement. The chazaka that the poor of the world would agree to continue this arrangement. What's the difference between the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yankiv and the opinion of Rabbi Achi? In other words, Rabbi Achi too, a person must have meant only to poor people and not poor goyim. So because you don't give it to the goyim. So the Gemara says that what's the difference is ikabinayu. The difference between is in aniye kutim. The difference is where the poor people are found to be the kutim. Now, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yankiv, we know that he holds that they're not gerei emes, and you cannot continue this arrangement with them serving for the poor people. According to Rabbi Achai, they are considered gerei emes, and a person can continue this arrangement serving them to the poor people. Okay, it was taught in the Brisa ha'asher ani. If the poor person becomes wealthy, so then ein mafrishin alav, the balabais can no longer separate meisers based on the outstanding loan, and v'zach alav b'masha biyodei, and the borrower who is now wealthy acquires the money remaining in his possession. Why? Because what was the outset of their loan? Their agreement is I'm giving you money, and you're an ani, and I have to give meiser ani, so I'm going to pay myself back. But now that you became a rich guy, so I can't give you meiser ani, but I can't get paid back because the agreement was that I'm going to get paid back for meiser ani. So the guy's, let's say, his debt is that he has to qualify. Yeah.
He has to qualify.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah. Okay, so now the Gemara says, "V'Rabbanon." According to the Chachamim, Maishna the Misa the Ovatakanta. Now, what's the difference about death when the poor man dies? So they made a takana to enable the balabas to continue to separate meiser on other poor people. Maishna la Ashir is the Ovatakanta. And what's the difference about wealth when the poor man becomes wealthy that they do not have a takana? So the Gemara says, Misa shchicha. To die, that's shchicha. Ashir is shchicha. Becoming wealthy, wealth is not common. And hear this. Amar Papa says, this is what people say. Chavrach mis, if people say your friend died, okay, then Asher, believe him. It's Asher, if somebody says, by the way, your friend, he became a gvir, then like the Asher, do not believe him, because it's not very...
What's so random? That can happen pretty easily.
Not very common.
Why not? That happens every day. People come to
Not, I don't know, the last...
It's more likely a person's going to die than...
Yes, then become wealthy. Okay. We learned in the Mishnah Mace. Let's continue. Mace, if the person dies, then Sarlita Rishus. So he has to take Rishus from the Yarshin. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi says, Yarshin, Shiyarshu. That he says it's referring to Yarshim who inherited. Umika Yarshim, frankly, what Umika Yarshim the Yarshim? Are there inheritors who don't inherit? What do you mean by Yarshim that actually inherited? So Elam Rabbi Yechanan, Shiyarshu Karka. It means that they inherited land. As one can collect his choiv from the nechasim sheish be'em achrayis, v'lo yishyarshu ksafim, but not that they inherited money, as lenders cannot collect debt from a metaltalin, from money that the yarshim inherited. Rabbi Yonasan says, "Hiniach milay machat." If the kohen left his yarshim, if the kohen left his yarshim enough land to fill a needle, in other words, a minimal amount. So then the din is gave him leimachat. The balabas collects, he separates truma and the amount of produce that has the value of a full needle of land. Malei kardum, if he left the land full of axe, in other words, a larger amount, gave him leikardum, then the balabas collects the value of the full axe of land. Even if he left the yarshim enough land to fill a needle, gave him like kardim, he could, the balabas can collect the full value of the land. And the Gemara says, and this is like the maisa, the small portion in the land and this happened in the Beis Din of Abaya. So the story is that the children of a deceased man had inherited a small field that was worth only a fraction of the choy that their father had owed. So what happened? The creditor seized the land in payment of the debt, and Abaya paskin that even after the orphans pay the creditor the value of the land to repurchase it, the creditor can now seize the land again, and the Yorshim will have to pay it again till the entire debt is repaid. Okay, we learned in the Rabbi Yisrael, Levi, with regard to a Yisrael who said to Levi, Meiser yesh lecha biyadi, there is Meiser of yours in my possession that I separated from my produce on your behalf. So one is not concerned about the truma of the Meiser that is in it. In other words, 1/10 of the Meiser that is given to the Kohen and forbidden to both the Levi and the Yisrael. Rather, we assume that it's only Meiser Rishon. Kor Meiser sheyesh lecha biyadi. But if he says this core of Meiser is in my possession, then Cheshen Trumas Meiser Shabai, one is concerned about the Truma and the Meiser that is in it. So the Gemara asks, my Omer, what is the Brisa saying? Omer Abai says, Hachik Omer, this is what the Brisa is saying. Yisrael Shomer Levi Meiser Yesh Lecha Biyadi. If a Yisrael says to a Levi, there is Meiser of yours in my possession, Behelach Damiv, and here is the money in exchange for it. Ein Cheshen Shema Aso Trumas Meiser Amokum Acher. So we're not concerned that perhaps the Levi converted the Meiser that is now in his possession, in the possession of the Yisrael, into Truma of elsewhere. However, in that case, then we're concerned that perhaps he converted into the Truma of the Meiser that he has elsewhere. Are we dealing with wicked people who take money in exchange for Meiser afterwards, and then the Shakli Dami Umashvili Trumas Meiser, they go and they convert into Trumas of Meisers? In other words, once the Levi takes money in exchange for the Meiser, it's no longer his to convert into Truma. So why would the Brisa address the case of a Levi who acts in this way? So if he says that the Meiser of your father I have in my hand, take the money, so we don't worry that perhaps the father converted it into Truma for a Meiser elsewhere. However, if he says Kor Meiser Lavich Biyadi, if he says this core of Meiser of your father is in my possessions, and here's the money in exchange for it, then one is concerned that perhaps his father converted into Truma for the Meiser elsewhere. And the son cannot accept the money. Are Chaverim suspected of separating Truma from produce that is not situated near the produce they seek to exempt? So Rashi says, this is what the Brisa means to say. Ben Yisrael Shamar Levi. Ben Yisrael says to Levi, Kach Amar li Abba. This is what my father told me. Meiser lecha biyadi, that there is Meiser of yours in my possession. And Meiser lavich biyadi. Cheshen trumas Meiser shabai. We are worried. Why? Kivin delakis lehevim sakani balabais. Since he did not a set amount, the balabais would have not rendered the truma fit for him. However, Kar Meiser lecha biyadi. Kar Meiser lavich biyadi. And Cheshen trumas Meiser shabai. Why? Kivin the kis takuna tikante balabais. Since the set amount. This is a set amount. The balabas is assumed to have rendered the Meiser fit by separating the Truma of the Meiser. Frag the Gemara. V'chiyesh le'reshus balabas litim Trumas Meiser. Does a balabas have the power to take Trumas Meiser? And for the Gemara in, yes, Omar Elazar ben Gamla. So this is Elazar ben Gamla. Okay, we'll start this tomorrow.